Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. I got a request from Janae. Thank you for this request to make this skirt. So today I will be using Yarn Bee Secret Soft in hot pink, and this is a medium weight 4 yarn. So any yarn that's same size will work. And then I'm going to use a pair of scissors, a measuring tape, and I'm going to use 2 hooks for this tutorial because I like my ribbing kind of skinny. So I'm going to start off with an F hook, and then for the actual skirt part I'm going to do switch to an H hook. Okay, if you don't have this hook size, it is fine. You can do it the same. This is just a personal preference. And then I did want to talk about the measurements that you're going to need before we get started. So I'll insert a picture here. The first measurement you're going to need is your small waist measurement. So this is like the smallest part of your waist. It sits up a little bit higher than like your natural waist. Unless you want this skirt to sit on your natural waist, you can take that measurement as well. The second measurement we need is the fullest part of your hips. So, go ahead and grab that measurement as well. And then the last measurement we need is the distance between the 2 points that you just measured, because we need to know how quickly to increase to get from the waist to the hip. And you'll see what I'm talking about as we get started. And yeah, that's it. So let's begin. All right, so I am going to actually start out with my F hook. And again, you do not have to start off with a smaller hook. It'll be the same because we're going off of different measurements. Okay, so if you do only have a different size, go for it. It's the same, and I'll explain why later. But go ahead and make your slip knot, and then we are going to make a chain of 11 chains. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. Okay, go ahead and chain one more for a turning chain, and then we're going to go back across this this chain with single crochets, but skip this turning chain and go into the second chain from your hook. Insert your hook and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through both loops on your hook. Insert your hook into the next chain space, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through both loops for a single crochet. Pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through both loops. So we're just going to single crochet all the way down. Sorry guys, somebody's beeping like crazy outside. So go ahead and do 11 single crochets. And one more. Go. Okay, so just 11 basic single crochets, chain 1, and turn your work. From here, we're going to start like the ribbing stitch. So if you turn it on its side, you can see that there's 2 loops in every stitch, and we normally go through both of them. We're going to go through the back loop only, and this is what creates that ribbing effect. Okay, so insert your hook into that back loop only, and then pull up a loop, and then yarn over and single crochet. Okay, so insert into the back loop only, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through both loops on your hook. Insert into the back loop only, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through both loops on the hook. And we are going to continue this until the end of this row. All single crochets into the back loop only. Alright, and once you get here, chain one and turn your work. Okay? And so from here we're just going to repeat this ribbing stitch. Okay, so again we're going to insert into the back loop only, pull up a loop, whoops, pull up a loop and single crochet in the back loops only. And you can always tell which one is your last stitch because it has this like little knot there. Just make sure you don't ever skip your last stitch so you have a straight line. Okay? From here we're going to chain one and turn our work. And we're pretty much going to repeat this back loop single crochet pattern until this is long enough to stretch. So once this stretches and fits over your hip, then it's long enough. Okay, because when you pull your skirt up, you want it, you got to be able to get it on. So go ahead and make this long enough until when you stretch it out, it'll match your hip measurement. Okay, and I will put my measurements up. I'll discuss my measurements as an example just for you to see. But go ahead and continue that, or skip ahead and see what I'm talking about, and I'll meet you there. Alright, so this is what it looks like. It's just a really long piece of ribbing at this point. And so what you really want to do is to make sure that this will fit over your hip, you want to just take your measuring tape and begin to stretch as you measure. Just stretch it on out as you measure, and just make sure that it will reach your measurement. So mine was 38. I don't know if I'm kind of blocking it there. Mine was 38, but this reaches like 39, so I know it's long enough. When it's shrunken, without stretching, I believe this was 28 inches. Just me gently measuring it. Yeah, about 28 inches. So my waist measurement is a 30, and we know it'll stretch to that. And the reason why I used a smaller hook is because it provides this with a maximum stretch when the stitches are smaller. So so the only difference between using like a larger hook is that this may end up being longer than your waist measurement. which is fine because we can run a drawstring through it. But the most important thing about the fitting of the skirt is making sure that this stretches to your hip length so that you can get it on. Okay? So the next thing we're going to do is we are going to crochet the two ends together. Okay, and if you can try, if you're not on the same side, if your loop isn't on the same side as this string here, I would do one more row so that you can have these on the same side. That way you can crochet over this, and I'll show you what I mean. I'm gonna flip it this way. Okay, so basically you want to put your side with the working yarn on it, put that one on the back side, and put the one with this tail on the front side, and lay that across like that so you can crochet over it. And then insert your hook into this first chain space here, and then insert your hook into the working loop from the other side, and go ahead and pull that through the front. Okay, from there go ahead and chain one, and we're going to go back into this same first stitch here and go into the first loop here. Okay, so we're just going through the corresponding stitches on both sides, and then pull up a loop and single crochet. Okay, so we're just going to do that all the way down. So go ahead and go into the second chain space in the front and the second chain space in the back side, pull up a loop and single crochet. Okay, so just do that all the way down, one stitch at a time, and just make sure, be careful to not skip any stitches here. And make sure you don't go through the same stitch twice as well. That's something that I've done several times. And then when you get to the last one on both sides, all right, so once you have the two sides crocheted together, you can let that one fall, and then we're actually going to keep this seam on the inside of our garment, because you never want a seam kind of showing. I mean, you can, but I wouldn't. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and flip this the other way so that it is on the inside. Okay? And make sure you flip it as such so that you can get to your string, because sometimes it gets stuck if you flip it the other way. All right? So from here, I'm going to go ahead and chain one, and then I'm just going to go along this edge and put one single crochet in every row that we created. Okay, so just one single crochet in every row. And sometimes it's hard because it's the side of stitches and not on the top. But it's easy to tell, like between the two ridges is 2 rows. So every time you see the bump, there's the bump is a row and then the flat part is a row. So that's how you kind of can tell where your rows are. So go ahead and complete one single crochet on the side of every row, and I will meet you at the end of this row when we get back to the beginning. Okay, so once you are coming up on the other side, go ahead and finish one single crochet in every row, and then go ahead and slip stitch into that very first single crochet. Okay, from here, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go ahead and switch hooks. And you know what? I lied earlier. I am going to use a G hook in between before I get to my H hook, because these are so small that I don't really, it doesn't look like the H hook will fit in there. Okay, if you're not using a smaller hook, then you can kind of disregard this step. But what we're going to do is go ahead and chain one, and then we're going to use our G hook to do single crochets across. And it's still going to be tight when you do it this way because it's a larger hook. But just do single crochets across this row with the G hook. Okay, just like we did the last row. And I will meet you back there and show you what to do next. Okay, so it looks like I have just a few stitches left here with my G hook. So I'm going to go ahead and finish off the single crochets in this row. 1, 2, and 3. And then from here I'm going to go ahead and slip stitch into the first single crochet of this row. Okay, from here I'm going to change hooks now to my H hook. So go ahead and switch to your 5mm hook if you haven't already, and we're going to start our next row, which is now going to be double crochets. So for the first double crochet of this row, I'm going to do like a fake, kind of a fake double crochet. So I'm going to insert my hook, pull up a loop, and single crochet. And I'm kind of going to do this loosely so it can kind of be chunky and kind of look like a double crochet. And then I'm just simply going to pull that up just slightly, not too much, but just so it's loose. And then I'm going to chain one, like a very loose chain one. So that's like a faux double crochet. Okay, from here I'm going to go ahead and double crochet in every stitch all the way around. So yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Okay, yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And I'm just going to do this until the end of the row, and I will meet you there and show you. Okay, so I have one double crochet left in this row. So I'm going to go ahead and do my last double crochet. And then I'm going to slip stitch. So we did the chain one and we did the single crochet and chain one. I'm going to go ahead and slip stitch into on top of that chain one there, okay? And pull it tight when you do that. That way it kind of closes that seam up a little bit. And from here, all the rows are going to be a little bit different. I'm going to put a picture up and show you why we're doing this, because your seam can end up going askew that way, and we don't want that. You don't want a big diagonal seam on your back, you know, on your booty. So we're not gonna do it that way. We're going to kind of cheat so that the seam stays straight. Okay, so I'm gonna just chain one here, okay? And instead of worrying about this slip stitch space, I'm gonna go into the next space before I even start my double crochets. So don't worry about this space. We're gonna hit this space on the way back. That way our seam can stay straight, okay? So go ahead and yarn over and skip that slip stitch space, and then do your first double crochet in the next chain space. Okay? And so from here, just continue and go around doing double crochets around this row, and I will show you how to close off the row so that your seam can stay straight. And we're also going to talk about gauge and how to reach our hip measurement, because we're going to have to start increasing to be able to make your hip measurement. Okay, so I'll explain all that next. So I'll meet you back at the end of this row. Okay, so I have just a few double crochets left, but I want to explain that we are going to work a double crochet where this chain one is, where that slip stitch was. Okay, so go ahead and finish your round, and it'll look like you only have one double crochet left, but because we started off over here, we're gonna have to put one double crochet in this slip stitch space. Okay, so just find that space where you made the chain one and put a double crochet in that slip stitch space. Okay, we did pull it tight, but in this way we'll keep our seam from going crooked. So from here, find your first actual double crochet of the row and go ahead and slip stitch like that. Okay, from there we're going to talk a little bit about gauge first, and then we will continue. Okay. Okay, so let's talk about gauge. Basically, gauge is just how many stitches or how many rows are in a given measurement. So I'm going to use the measurement 1 inch. People do this differently all the time. But basically, I'm going to put my 0 marker like kind of right in front of one stitch. And then I'm going to see how many stitches are within this 1 inch. So I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, about 4.5 to 5. I'm going to go with 4.5 here. So 4.5 stitches equals 1 inch. And I got that written down. And then secondarily, you need to know how many rows are in 1 inch. So I'm going to put my 0 marker above that, and it is about 2 rows. 2 rows equals 1 inch. Okay? So I wrote that down already. All right, and then please forgive my sloppy notes, but I know that my hip is gonna need to be 38 inches, and I know that that distance between my smallest part of my waist and my fullest hip is 9 inches because I measured that already. So basically the first thing you need to know is, I'm just going to redraw that. So I just had to redraw that right quick because it was really sloppy for me. But so the first thing we need to do is go back and count how many stitches are in this row. So just go around and count. I've already done that, and I found that this row has about it has actually 146. That's how many double crochets that I have so far. And so going off of my gauge, if I divide this by my stitch amount or my stitching gauge, if I divide that by that, so 146 divided by 4.5 stitches, it's going to give me about 32.5 inches, okay? So that's where I'm at. That's how long this is so far. But what I really need to do is figure out how many stitches do I need by the time I get to this row. How many stitches do I need to get 38 inches? So how do you do that? You take your 38 inches, and then you're going to have to multiply that by your stitch gauge. So 38 times 4.5 inches equals 100, or stitches, sorry, equals 171 stitches. If I can spell stitch. Stitches. So I'm gonna need 171 stitches in this row here, in this row by the time I get here. Okay, so we know that this is about 9 inches away from each other. However, we have already crocheted some, so let's see how long this is so far. And we crocheted about 3 inches so far. So we only have 6 inches left because my 9 minus 3 is 6. We already have the top portion kind of made. 3 inches worth of skirt made already. So within 6 inches, I need to increase from this number to this number. I need to get here in 6 inches. Okay, and I'm gonna evenly spread that out. So first thing you want to do is figure out how much that is. So we're going to subtract 171 or 146 from 171. Okay, and that looks like 25 stitches. So I need to increase 25 stitches, but I'm going to spread that out over 6 inches. And because we know, I know this might, it's kind of difficult for me to explain, so I hope I'm doing an okay job with this. But so we need to increase by 25 inches and 20. We need to increase by 25 stitches, but spread it out over 6 inches long. So we want to increase slowly. We don't want to just put the whole 25 stitches into like one row. We want to evenly spread out and evenly increase as we move down. Okay, so we have to figure out how many rows left, approximately how many rows are left before we reach this measurement marker here. And because we know we have 6 inches left and there's 2 rows for every inch, we know that we're going to need 12 rows. Okay, so in 12 rows I need to increase over time 25 stitches. Okay, so in 12 rows I need to increase to 25 stitches. I can't spell stitches. Oh, there's a T there. Okay, so that means that about 2 stitches, we only need to increase by 2 stitches, because 25 divided by 12 really is 2 point whatever. So it could be off by 1, that's okay. So I'm actually going to just change this into 24 to make it easier for me. But I know that I'm going to increase, if I increase by 2 stitches in every row for 12 rows, I will have achieved the increase that I need by the time I get here. And I really hope that makes sense, okay, because 24 stitches divided by 12 rows is just 2 stitches, if that makes sense. I know it's a lot of math here. If this is confusing at all for you, like, you can always write me in the comments, because this is the first time I'm really explaining gauge and I don't know if I'm doing a good job at it. But hopefully this example kind of gives you an idea of why gauge is really important and how you can create, you can alter patterns, you can, you know, just make things up that fit perfectly. So for me, what I'm going to do is continue crocheting. I'm going to continue crocheting for 12 more rows. And I'm going to add increase 2 double crochets in, I'm going to increase by 2 double crochets in every row. Okay? So here is my kind of like formula that I used, and you can pause the video and use your own measurements here. Here are some examples of the amount of stitches needed for an H hook for various hip measurements. And if you're making this for someone else, I have in the description box a place to get good measurement information. So you can click the link to the Craft Yarn Council and check out other sizes if you need to make this for someone else. After you have your gauge together, we're going to continue. So remember, we slip stitched here, okay? So we're going to do every other row. Like the previous row, we skipped a stitch kind of, or skipped the slip stitch and went into the next one. In this row, we're going to actually chain 1 and then do our double crochet into the first one. So it's going to be every other row. We're going to do our double crochet into this slip stitch area. So after you chain 1, yarn over and then do your double crochet into the slip stitch space. Okay, and that's the only difference for every other row. Okay, so one row we're going to skip that slip stitch spot and go into the next one, and then in the following row we're going to do our double crochet into the slip stitch space. Okay, and before we continue doing this row, let's add our increases. I'll show you how I'm going to do that. So we want all of our increases to be in the back. So we're not going to increase any in the front. And for me, I have to increase by 2 in every row. So I'm going to put my increases kind of like relative to this middle seam so that the increases are kind of evenly spaced throughout the back side. I'm going to put some increases like all the way on the edge. So I'm going to mark those off so I know where they are when I get to them. It doesn't really have to be super exact, but my first increase I'm going to do like on the two edges, and then the next row I might put them like closer, and then I might put them, you know, but just evenly spaced in every row. Okay, so go ahead and put a stitch marker where you want to put your increases, and then go ahead and continue your double crochets until you reach those stitch markers, and I'll show you how to increase when we get there. So when you get to this place where you have your first stitch marker, go ahead and remove it. And then in this stitch is where we're going to put our increase. So I'm going to go ahead and put 2 double crochets into the same chain space. 1, and yarn over and go back into the same chain space and pull up a loop and do 1 more double crochet. Okay, from there we're going to continue our regular double crochets all the way around until we get to our next stitch marker. So when you reach your next stitch marker, go ahead and remove that, and we're going to do the same thing that we did last time and just put 2 double crochets into that same chain space. 1 and 2. And then we will continue with our regular double crochets until we reach the end of the row. So I'm coming up on the end of my row, and remember this one we already put the double crochet into the slip stitch. So this one will be our last stitch for this row. Okay, so go ahead and make your last double crochet, and don't put one in the slip stitch area, and go ahead and slip stitch on top of that first double crochet. Okay, slip stitch there. Now for this next row, this next following row, remember we're doing every other row. So we're gonna go ahead and chain 1, and this time we're going to not put our first double crochet into the slip stitch area, but we're gonna put it into the following stitch. Okay, so just chain 1 and put the double crochet this time into the following stitch. If that's confusing, go ahead and ask questions. I'm also going to put a few links on this issue, because this is sometimes it's not important how that looks, but I mean, if you just do it regular, it's going to go that way, and it's just a really bad look on a skirt, in my opinion. Another way, if you don't like this method, another way is just to turn your work every time you do a round. So once you slip stitch, just turn your work, and you'll be working from the inside though. So some of your stitches will be backside showing up on the front. So that's the other way to kind of keep your seam straight. Okay. So from here, I'm going to again pick another space for me to put my increases. So I'm gonna pick them relative to this seam and try to keep them kind of equidistant from that seam so that the increases are a little bit uniform. It doesn't have to be super duper perfect. You can count these stitches if you want, but I'm gonna go ahead and do it that way. Okay, so continue your rows with your increases. Continue going back and forth with this seam method to keep your seam straight. And go ahead and finish this until you reach your hip measurement. Okay, so I know that I measured this after the first 2 rows, so I needed 12 rows total, and I already have 1, so I'm going to go ahead and do 11 more rows of increasing until I reach my hip measurement, and I'll meet you there and show you what to do next. Okay, and I just wanted to throw this in there because at some point, I mean, this is a longer skirt, so you're gonna run out of you're gonna have to, your skein's gonna run out, and I started off with a half a skein anyways, so I ran out pretty quickly. So basically this is the piece that's on my skirt, and this is the new string, and I'm just going to show you how I normally tie the 2 strings together so that I can keep going without kind of like worrying about stopping or a really huge knot. So basically I'm going to take both strings and tie them to each other in a single knot. Okay, so I'm going to take my new string and lay it here, and then I'm going to take my old string and just tie a single knot around it like that. Oops, out of frame. So yeah, see, I'm just tying a single knot around my new string like that. Okay, then I'm going to take this new string, the new tail, and tie a single knot around this and around the old string. Okay, so just take your other tail and make a regular single knot around the old string like that. See, you have the one here, and then you have that one. So you should have like a kind of a double loop here, or 2 knots, and then a loop in the middle. And from there you just pull them together, and now your 2 sides are together. And from there, I mean, it's not going to come out. You just go ahead and clip these 2 tails like that. Okay, and I mean, it might be a little bit obtrusive when you're crocheting, but you can pull this to the back. But it's just a nice way, you know, to not have to, see, I still have, it's always easy to attach a new string when like you're starting a new row, but I'm like mid, you know, I'm in the middle of this row, and I don't want to like undo the whole row and do that and just waste yarn. So that's one way where you can continue crocheting seamlessly. So this is what it looks like, and you can see that the increases kind of made the skirt go out a little bit, and I'll show you what's next. So after you get to this point where you have finished your increases and you're at your hip measurement, go ahead and slide it on, especially if you're making this for you. Go ahead and slide it on and make sure, you know, that it fits right. Make sure that you're about at your fullest part of your hip here, and then we can go ahead and continue. So I went on ahead and I measured like right up under my booty to see how much smaller that area is, and it is 3 inches smaller for me. So I'm going to start decreasing now, because this is the fullest part of your hip, and you're going to want to start decreasing at this point. So because we have our gauge already, I'm just going to guesstimate this, and I know that it's 4.5 stitches per inch, and I know that this needs to happen pretty quickly because it's like right up under my butt here that I'm trying to cinch it in. So I'm gonna start decreasing by 2 stitches per side for the next 4 rows to make this get tighter in the back. And I'm again only gonna do this change on the back end. So let's go ahead and pick up where we left off. And just make sure you're keeping in line with your rules of which row you're going to put a double crochet in the first one or put a double crochet into the slip stitch. And it looks like I'm on the row where I need to put my double crochet in the first one, so I'm going to go ahead and chain 1 and then start my row according to where I left off. And I'm going to do a few double crochets here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I have about 5 double crochets here. And I'm going to make my first decrease. So I'm going to yarn over, insert my hook into the next stitch, pull up a loop, and then insert my hook into the following stitch and pull up a loop. So now I have 4 loops on my hook, and then I'm going to yarn over and pull through 3 and yarn over and pull through 2. Okay, so that's 1 decrease, and I'm going to do 2 decreases on this side of my skirt. So I'm going to keep going until I get a little further out. So my first decrease is back here, and now I'm a little bit further away. So I'm going to put another decrease here. Okay, you can also use your stitch marker for this if you want, just so that they're kind of evenly spread out. But you don't want them like in a row or like back to back, because then they'll be very noticeable. So go ahead and yarn over, insert your hook into the next stitch, pull up a loop, insert into the next stitch, pull up a loop, and now you'll have 4 loops on your hook. Yarn over and pull through 3, and yarn over and pull through 2. You can use your stitch marker to kind of see where you did these and try to like get them when you come back around. You kind of want them in the same spots relative to this middle seam. Okay, so go ahead and make your way around, and then we will do some decreases on this side, and I'll meet you there. Alright, so I made my way all the way around, and I already have my 2 stitch markers kind of relative to where I had it on the other side for my decreases. So I'm gonna go ahead and continue my double crochets until I reach them, and then I'm going to finish my decreases for this row. So insert into the next loop, pull up a loop, insert into the next chain space, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 3, yarn over, pull through 2, and then I will continue until I reach my next stitch marker. And I will take this one out and do my next decrease. And then I'll go ahead and finish the row. like this is the row that I need to put a double crochet into the chain space here. I mean the slip stitch, sorry. Oops, I didn't even yarn over. And then I'm going to slip stitch into the first double crochet of this row. So basically, if you really want to, you can measure this out to see how much you want. You can do the exact measurements in the same way that we did it. I'm just gonna guesstimate here. So I'm gonna repeat this last row two to three more times. I'm gonna try it on and see how it is. Sorry, I'm making this up as I go. So you can do this for 2 to 3 more rows, or you can go back and like measure that out if you like. But I'm just gonna do this for 2 to 3 more rows, and then I'll meet you there and show you what's after that. Oh, and one more thing before we continue, just make sure that you put your decreases not in the same spot in the next row. So like this row, I'm just gonna go ahead and mark off kind of where I want to put them this time. So I put them kind of like here. Now I'm gonna put them somewhere else so that they're not as noticeable. So just make sure on every row that you're putting them kind of in a different spot, and just like we were doing before. All right, and I'll meet you there and show you. Went on ahead and I did 4 more rows of this, and I can tell now that the sides are no longer coming outwards. They're starting to curve and go straight down instead of increasing. So I tried it on, and you should try it on at this point. Once you do 4 rows or so, go ahead and try it on and see how it fits. See if it's all the way, you know, mine is not yet all the way covered under my butt. I hate saying that word on camera. It's not covering my butt yet, so I'm gonna repeat this pattern, decreasing by two decreases on each side of the back until it's all the way covering my butt. So I will let you know how many rows I used, but again, everyone is going to be different. So just continue this pattern until it covers all the way covers your butt, and I'll meet you back there and show you what to do next. After you get it to reach under your bottom, the next measurement you need is to be right above your knee. I'm going for 100 stitches here because I am a size medium to large, and I still want to be able to walk, but I want it tight. A size small can go for 96 inches, and a size extra large or 2X can do 104 to 110. So it took me 9 rows to completely cover my bottom, and now I just wanted to make sure that was going to be okay. So now I'm going to continue to decrease like we've been doing, and I'm going to slip stitch a little loose. I'm going to continue to decrease like we've been doing, except this time I'm going to start putting some kind of more in the front and right here on the sides. So I have, right now I have 136 stitches here in this row, and I'm going to continue to decrease until I have about 100 stitches left. So I'm still going to decrease by 4 at this point. I want the skirt to be kind of tapered to me, but you don't want it like so tight at the bottom that you can't walk. So I would suggest to continue decreasing, doing maybe like 4 rows at a time, and then trying it on and just making sure that it's not too tight. I do normally like to give the specific stitches for sizing, but because like everyone's waist and hips and butt and legs are so different, I mean, it's kind of like, this is one of those things you kind of want to tailor to you or to your client. So yeah, I would continue decreasing, except this time I'm going to put one decrease in the back, and then I'm going to kind of put one in the front, but more closer to the outside edge. So I'm probably going to put one like here and here, and then the same on the other side. I'm going to move them around a little bit, but let me just mark them off so you can kind of see what I mean. So, I mean, that's like my last decrease there, so I don't want to put it here. Maybe I'll put one like right here in the back, and then I'll go ahead and put like one more kind of towards the front, but towards the edge of the front. I don't want it like dead center, if that makes sense. So continue decreasing. Once you cover your bottom, you can start putting a couple kind of in the front but on the side. Just continue decreasing at this point until you reach the length that you want, and just occasionally try it on and make sure that you can still walk. I mean, I don't have specific sizing for everyone, but that's the best advice that I can give you for this, and it'll definitely work out. And another thing is that it's always better to make something like this smaller rather than larger, because it does have a slight stretch to it, not very much, but a little bit. So it's always good to err on the side of just going a tad bit smaller than your size. If you want it, you know, super duper tight, then you go, you know, smaller. But yeah, just continue, and I will meet you back when I have my skirt the length that I need, and we will do the bottom border. If anything comes up in between that, I'll talk about that in the meantime. Just continue decreasing, and once you kind of hit maybe like, I mean, I'm making it kind of like a size medium, so I'm gonna try it on when I decrease to 100 and just make sure that I can walk when I have 100 stitches in this row. So just decrease and keep trying it on until you know it's tight enough for you. And yeah, I'll meet you at the bottom and show you what's next. So this is what it looks like, and I'm ready to start on my border. So far I have 66 rows, and it's pretty much long enough for where I want mine to be. So from here, what we're gonna do is put a quick border on. So there are many different borders you can do to customize this and kind of make it your own. I kind of want a very simple border, so I'm actually just going to go around a few times with single crochets. So I already did my slip stitch, and I'm going to chain one. And it looks like in this row, my last double crochet was right in that slip stitch area, so I'm gonna put my first single crochet into the slip stitch area for this row, just keeping in line with what we've been doing to keep our seam straight. So I'm just gonna go around a few times with single crochets just to kind of clean off this edge. And I'm going to go all the way around a few times, and I'll show you what it looks like after that. So I went around once and already slip stitched, and I'm going to start, just for the sake of this border that I'm doing, I'm gonna go into the back loops only. So this one I went into the slip stitch chain space, so this one I'm gonna skip that one and go over here, and I'm gonna go into the back loops only and do some single crochets just so I get a little ridge there that will kind of give it a little more texture. So I'm gonna do this 2 or 3 more times and then I will be finished, and I'll show you what it looks like on. If you do have any questions, please be sure to ask me. I do know that my skirt has 66 rows of double crochets, and it kind of got all the way to my mid-calf, so which you'll see here in a minute. And so it really just depends on your height. Everyone's different. You can definitely look up alternative borders to do to make this skirt, you know, give it a little more flair, give it your own spin. There's plenty of good YouTube tutorials on more specific borders. I know you could do like a ribbing border, or you could do a more lacy border, or you do something basic like what I'm doing. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish the border that I picked. I'm just gonna do a few rows of these back loop only single crochets because I like that little ridge line. So I completed 3 rows of back loop only single crochets for my chosen border. You could also leave it bare if you like. I mean, it's pretty cute without a border, but I'm gonna go ahead and slip stitch and then chain 1 and tie off. And the very last thing I would recommend doing with this is to go back up to the top. So you see, like, the top is still stretchy, and once it gets over your hips, and the skirt is sometimes a little heavy depending on what kind of yarn you used, you might want a drawstring here. Okay, so there's 2 ways that you could put your drawstring on your skirt. I tend to like to put it on the inside, like you know, like those jogging shorts and stuff, so that it's not seen. And then some people like it to be you know, on the outside. So we already have our waistline, high waistline measurement, and mine's I think was 28 or 30, one of those. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make a chain. I'm just gonna make a regular chain that is my waist measurement, and then I'm gonna add about 10 to 15 inches to that, because you need a little space to tie it. So go ahead and make a slip stitch, and then start chaining out your chain until you reach your waist measurement plus about 10 to 15 inches as well. Maybe 10 should be enough though. You just want it long enough so that it'll fit around your waist, and then you can tie it. So go ahead and do that, and then we'll weave our drawstring into the skirt. So I just went on ahead and made my string about 40 inches long, just so I knew I could have enough for it to tie around my waist. So I'm just going to cut and tie off. Alright. So since I'm putting this on the inside, I mean, and nobody's going to really be able to see it, I'm not going to worry about the strings being super even. But basically all you need to do is find your center front, and you can go ahead and count that, and it's based on this back seam. I'm just going to guess that my center front is about right here. So I'm just going to kind of mark off where that is, about right here. And so I want to be able to tie it in the front. So what I'm going to do is go back to my smaller hook, because this ribbon was smaller, and I'm just going to kind of pick a space that's near the front but at the top to kind of hold my string there. And I'm going to pick that space and just weave this in and out. So basically, by the time I'm done, I want to end like right here. So I'm going this way. So I'm just gonna pick, I'm probably gonna skip like 2 in between and just try to pick the same distance down from the top, but I'm just gonna skip like 2 in between, and oops, it should be coming from this side actually, so it's all going in one direction. And just weave it on around. And just keep weaving it around till you're all the way, keep weaving it until you're all the way around. And once you're done with that, you know, you're pretty much done. So I'll show you what it looks like. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a like, a subscribe, a comment. Please don't hesitate if you have any questions. I'm always here to help. And I will see you on the next video. Thanks guys. Bye.